I was over here dancing to that music. I'm Jordan Robinson. Welcome to the JDRF TypeOneNation Summit. I am your host for this evening, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us and celebrating World Diabetes Day. I was diagnosed with T1D at the age of 23, and I am a sports broadcast journalist with a particular focus on women's basketball and women's sports. I'm so excited to be here. I'm repping my shirt. I couldn't be more happy to join with you today. So tonight marks the culmination of our 2023 four-part virtual series. This evening's session is titled T1D Across the Globe. It's held in recognition of National Diabetes Awareness Month and World Diabetes Day. You are going to hear from JDRF CEO Dr. Aaron J. Kowalski, leading T1D experts, and JDRF international affiliates who will talk about the progress we're making in T1D management and innovation treatments. It's going to be so good. National Diabetes Awareness Month is a time when the world comes together to shed light on a chronic disease that affects millions of people. This year's focus, moving forward for type 1 diabetes, unites us and urges everyone to join in collectively making stride towards a brighter, healthier future for those living with T1D. To learn more about NDAM and how you can participate, visit jdrf.org/NDAM and share your hashtag forward for T1D story. The TypeOneNation Summit program offers education, connection, and inspiration on a variety of important topics to help you and your loved ones live well with T1D. So throughout the year, we have offered virtual sessions like tonight, as well as so many in-person summit events hosted by JDRF chapters across the country. So if you'd like to stay up to date on your virtual series, please register. We'll post the link in the chat. You can also visit the same link to find an in-person TypeOneNation Summit event near you. So before we get started, I'd like to extend a special thank you to our national industry partners. Their support helps make these things like TypeOneNation Summits possible. There are many options available to you to help you and your loved ones manage and lessen the daily burden of T1D. JDRF does not endorse any specific product or brand and would encourage you to visit jdrf.org to learn more about all the options available to you and your family. We also encourage you to speak to your healthcare provider to discuss the options and a treatment plan that works best for you and your loved ones. So without further ado, that was a lot, but you are in for such a treat this evening. So if you haven't already done so, please share the link to this session to your friends and family to make sure that they tune in. Also, please feel free to comment and ask questions in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as possible, and we'll also be posting resources there throughout the discussion. So that is where the party is. We have so much to cover this evening, but let's jump right in and introduce our very first guest, Dr. Jeremy Pettis. Dr. Pettis is an endocrinologist and associate clinical professor of medicine at UCSD and the director of the Type 1 track and CME at Taking Control of Your Diabetes. He has been living with T1D since the age of 15. Tonight, Dr. Pettis will walk us through the new world of Type 1 diabetes. Check it out.
Pettis. I'm an endocrinologist at the University of California, San Diego, where I do a lot of JDRF-funded research in type 1 diabetes. I also work for Taking Control of Your Diabetes, or TCOID, a not-for-profit educational company. And then importantly, I've been living with type 1 diabetes myself since I was 15, and I've been tasked to give you with this rapid-fire overview of what's new in the world of type 1 diabetes. So here we go. So first we got to start with the bad news first, right? Why are we talking about this? Why do we want a cure? Well, obviously there's some things that aren't great. So only 2 out of 10 people with type 1 get their A1C less than 7. Only 20% of type 1s are getting to that metric that we're kind of striving for. Another way of saying that is 80% of people aren't. So a lot of type 1s are struggling to get their blood sugars under control. And if you or your family or loved one is struggling, you're not alone. Guess what? 2 out of 3 type 1s as we grow up are either overweight or obese. So weight is becoming a problem in people with type 1 diabetes. Hypoglycemia is still a problem. 1 out of 20 type 1s going to the ER, the hospital with a bad low each year. Same thing for diabetic ketoacidosis. So here's the bad news, right? We're struggling to get our blood sugars down. Weight, lows, DKA. So that's the issue. What does this look like in real time though? What's the struggle that we live with every day? Well, I'm an endocrinologist. I know a lot about this disease, but I still have my literal highs and lows. Ate breakfast the other day, went a little bit high, got mad. What I call a rage bolus, where you take a bunch of insulin because you're tired of looking at your blood sugars being high. And then, got low, stuffed my face with everything that was in the fridge, and my blood sugars blasted off to, whatever, and bolus and kind of repeated. So this is the roller coaster of type 1 diabetes. So I mentioned all the statistics, but this is what we're living with every day, and it can be maddening even when these numbers weren't that bad. So the struggle is real. We're trying to grab this cheeseburger here, and we got these little T-Rex arms. Like, life with type 1 can be tough. But cheer up, because it's good news time, and to make you believe it's good news time, I found a picture of a turtle and a dog, and they're both having a good time. All right, so what's hot in type 1 diabetes? Well, we got these little flames here, so we know it's hot, right? So first we got technology. I'm going to go through actually 4 different things. So technology is booming, and you don't believe me. I made a sophisticated chart, and don't take my word for it. It says sophisticated chart right there of what my technology has been, or what I've been using in terms of my technology since I was diagnosed in 1994 all the way through today. And here is the graph. Boom. There it is. So basically, for the first 10, 15 years of my diabetes life, things didn't change that much. But now every couple months, there's some new CGM or insulin pump, and it's been fantastic with all these developments. That's honestly sometimes hard even as an endocrinologist to keep up. But what do we really want with this technology? Well, it's simple. We want better control and less burden. We don't want to think about things as much, and we want our blood sugars to do well. And in that space, we have new options. But first, here's what I had in 1994, my first meter. I love that it was called the One Touch Basic. Even then they knew it was basic. It took 60 seconds to get a result, which when you're a high school kid trying to do it on your desk is an eternity. And a couple years go by, and it was slightly smaller and still took 60 seconds, but had a memory function, and that was a big deal. And a decade goes by, and then they get a little bit smaller and need a little bit less blood, so that was nice. I don't like how on these ads it's always a perfect blood sugar of 104, whatever. And then 2010, we got our first CGM that I actually use, the 7 Plus. And since then, like I said, it's been every year, the G4, the G5, it's updated, the G6, now we have the G7. So this technology is really kind of blown up, and it's huge. And with each iteration, now guess what? I don't have to check my finger sticks. My CGM does it for me. Can't remember the last time I poked my finger. Knowing when I'm high, when I'm low, having people follow my blood sugars. This has been huge. And the cat's really jumped out of the bag with all these different companies getting in on this because it's such an important technology. So that's huge. In terms of pumps, we have multiple options now of automated insulin delivery. The iLet just came on the market just literally months ago. Something you haven't heard about, should definitely research. Getting closer to truly automated insulin delivery without even requiring counting carbs. That's a huge plus. We have the Omnipod, Tandem, there's a Medtronic, so many different options, and hopefully you can learn more about these. But they're doing things that shots can't. Less lows, less highs, better blood sugar control has been fantastic. There's also kind of non-FDA approved things like looping, if you haven't heard about, ways of kind of actually hacking these systems to install algorithms in it. So there's a lot going on here. And really, these things really have their biggest benefit overnight. This is where you can see someone's CGM download. And what it's showing here is overnight, their blood sugars really tighten up. So I always say with these devices, the biggest benefit is, gosh, waking up with a good blood sugar. And it's just so much of a better day when you wake up in range. It just makes you feel better. You feel like the day is going to be better. Things can still go to hell as you're eating throughout the day. As you can see, the people are still having these highs and things after meals. But the overnight control has been a huge benefit of these. Now, what about new insulins? I'll go through these quickly, but we got newer basal insulins. So if you are using shots, Tresiba, Toujeo, more kind of consistent than Lantus, less hypoglycemia, more flexible dosing. So those have actually been big advantages. We have newer rapid-acting insulins, Fiasp and Lyumjev, that work a little bit faster than Humalog and Novolog. So if you haven't heard about those, worth asking. And then Afrezza. This is something that still people just don't know about, an inhaled insulin that works extremely quickly to bring down those frustrating highs so you're not just kind of dealing with high blood sugar all day. This is something that I use in conjunction with my automated insulin delivery system that works really, really well. Also, glucagon, maybe not as exciting, but getting new formulations of glucagon so you don't have that little red suitcase anymore that you have to mix. You got the Gvoke pen that's already pre-mixed. You don't see the needle, so you can inject it even through your jeans and things like that. And then the nasal version, Baqsimi. So everybody with type 1 diabetes should have glucagon, know where it is, and if you have glucagon, using one of these new formulations is actually huge. Other medications, what about things besides insulin? Why do I have pictures of all these kind of famous people? Well, you probably know they're all on Ozempic. Everybody in Hollywood is taking these medications to lose weight, and maybe we can use these in type 1s. Exploring other medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, these things you may or may not have heard of, but there's a big movement now, and gosh, we'll always need insulin, but can some of these other meds help us get better control? It's a lot of the research I'm doing, and I think a very exciting area that will have some other medications to add, just like our friendly type 2s do, or compatriots, if we will, in blood sugar management. So why can't type 1s use them? I predict we will soon. Now, finally, with the cure, there's so much going on in this area. I had to divide it between prevention, preservation, replacement. We have our first ever approved drug to prevent or delay the onset of type 1 diabetes called Tzield. Just got approved this year. So screening your loved ones to find out if they're risk for type 1, there's something to do about it now. What if you just got type 1? How do we preserve insulin production? A lot of kind of research going on in that area, and everyone's kind of thinking that Tzield will be approved for that area too. And then finally, replacement. All the stem cell therapy advances of giving cells back to patients so that somebody like me who's had type 1 for a long time could actually start making insulin again and come off of it is just completely fascinating. So if you're worried that there's nothing going on in this space, hopefully this quick overview is showing you completely the opposite, that trust me, there's a lot going on. There's never been a more exciting time to have type 1 diabetes. Final thing I'll say is listen up. If you haven't heard anything else I've said, this is absolutely true. Type 1s are living longer now than people without diabetes. So as long as people do a reasonably good job of keeping their blood sugars in control, there's information or data showing that type 1s are living longer than we ever have, and even with people without diabetes, because we're so in tune with our health, because we're checking in with blood sugars and cholesterol and all these things. So it really is an amazing day to have type 1 diabetes. Thanks so much.
Wow. I think I said wow like 20 times while listening to Dr. Pettis. Thank you so much for all that insight. My favorite part was the technology. I call them my robot parts and I love them. I got on a tandem insulin pump this year. It's changed my life. Changed my life for the better. It is so amazing. So thank you for that again, Dr. Pettis, for that incredible update. Next up, we're going to move right along because we're having so much fun. It's my pleasure to share a special message from JDRF CEO, Dr. Aaron J. Kowalski. Dr. Kowalski was diagnosed with T1D more than 30 years ago. He joined JDRF in 2004, and he's the first person with T1D to serve as JDRF CEO. That's so exciting. Prior to his appointment as CEO, Dr. Kowalski served as JDRF Chief Mission Officer. A renowned scientific researcher in the T1D field, Dr. Kowalski has authored numerous peer-reviewed journals, articles, including the Artificial Pancreas Roadmap that was adopted by the diabetes industry to significantly accelerate commercial systems, and a landmark New England Journal of Medicine study demonstrating the effectiveness of continuous glucose monitors. So it is our pleasure to share this message from Dr. Aaron J. Kowalski.
Hi everyone, I'm JDRF CEO Aaron Kowalski. Thank you for being here with us today on World Diabetes Day, which falls on the birthday of Sir Frederick Banting. More than 100 years ago, Banting and his colleague Charles Best discovered insulin as a therapy for diabetes. It was a momentous discovery that has saved millions of lives, and it won a Nobel Prize. So much has changed since 1922, but one thing hasn't: the importance of research in developing advanced therapies and cures for type 1 diabetes. JDRF was founded to cure type 1. On any given day, tens of thousands of talented and passionate JDRF supporters like you are donating, fundraising, advocating, and volunteering to help us accelerate life-changing breakthroughs for type 1 diabetes. Move the standard of care for type 1 from finger poking to continuous glucose monitors, insulin pumps, and now even artificial pancreas systems. We fought for access to these advancements and led the charge on getting artificial pancreas systems to the market. Because of that, we're seeing healthier pregnancy outcomes, more time in range, fewer dangerous highs and lows, and even better sleep. We're thrilled that people with type 1 are doing better. Now it's time to look forward. Because of your leadership, we have multiple type 1 cures in development. Cell therapies and disease-modifying therapies are two of the most promising approaches to curing type 1, and JDRF has been supporting both for decades. Cell therapies involve placing insulin-producing cells inside your body. Disease-modifying therapies are drugs that change the course of a disease. Cells inside your body. Disease-modifying therapies are drugs that change the course of a disease. And we're seeing tremendous advancements in both of these areas and in multiple different approaches. First, let's talk about cell therapies, an area JDRF has supported for 40 plus years. Just months ago, we had a history in the making moment when the US Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, approved Lantidra, the first ever cell therapy for people with type 1 in the US. Lantidra is for adults with severe hypoglycemia and is made from donor islets, which unfortunately are in short supply. Lantidra also requires immunosuppressive drugs to prevent transplant rejection. So we're working to overcome all of this through our cell therapy program, in which we are now seeing amazing results with numerous human clinical trials happening right now. In Vertex's human clinical trial of a therapy called VX-880, 2 people have been able to completely stop taking their insulin. Moreover, all 6 of the early participants in this study are doing well. All of their bodies are making insulin again, and we expect to see more data soon. In another clinical trial done by Cernova, 5 people are off insulin. All of these advances are a huge deal, and I truly believe cell therapies will provide a pathway for us to take off our devices and finally walk away from type 1. Now let's talk about disease-modifying therapies. In November, we had another historic moment when the FDA approved the first ever disease-modifying therapy for type 1. This drug, called Tzield, delays the onset of type 1 by nearly 3 years for at-risk individuals. JDRF has also long supported disease-modifying therapies research. We had a hand in the development of Tzield from the very beginning more than 30 years ago. This spring, Tzield was added to the American Diabetes Association's Standards of Care for Diabetes to delay T1D in at-risk individuals. These standards of care are considered the gold standard of guidelines for diabetes clinical care. Another example of exciting progress in disease-modifying therapies is the results of the CLEVER study, which were just published in February. This study, which was based on years of JDRF work and was funded by JDRF, showed that verapamil, a generic blood pressure medication, can preserve beta cell health in newly diagnosed individuals. It can slow down the progression of type 1. The bodies of people who take this drug kept making insulin. These are just a few examples of the tremendous advancements we're seeing in type 1 diabetes cures, research, and development. There are many, many more, and we expect to see data from clinical trials of other therapies in the near future. Clearly, research and advocacy are keys to improving lives and curing type 1 diabetes for everyone. Research, though, is a means, not an end. If you don't have access to therapies, you don't benefit from the research. Thanks to your work, we've made important wins in the area of access. For example, for Medicare enrollees, we won a monthly $35 out-of-pocket insulin price cap, and we're fighting to extend that to other populations. We helped launch the Civica Insulin Project, which will manufacture biosimilar insulin that will cost $30 a vial. Anybody will be able to walk into a pharmacy and purchase a vial of short-acting or long-acting insulin. It'll be that simple. I believe this has fundamentally changed the market in the United States, and we saw that with Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi reducing the cost of their insulins. This news from the big three is welcome, as it will make insulin more affordable for some people. But we know the problem isn't fully solved. Gaps remain. We must address them now. The burden of type 1 diabetes around the world is increasing, and hundreds of thousands of people with T1D don't have access to the care they need. Earlier this year, I was part of a group of diabetes and health leaders who went to Mozambique, which is in Southeast Africa. While I was there, I met the family of an amazing 12-year-old girl named Estrella and her mom. Estrella was just diagnosed recently with type 1, and she and her mother don't have refrigeration. So Estrella stores her insulin in a hole in the ground to keep it cool. Estrella also doesn't have a glucose meter to measure her blood sugar, making it nearly impossible to effectively manage her type 1. We gave her a glucometer and showed her how to use it. And I shared with her that I have type 1, which her mom couldn't believe. She said, "You must have another disease because you've actually grown up and you're big." She didn't think that would happen for Estrella. How sad is that? JDRF needs to make sure all advances from insulins to future cures are available to all people with type 1 diabetes, no matter who they are or where they live. This is important because it's the right thing to do, of course, but it also will help us get to cures faster. There couldn't be a better time for us to expand our global leadership in the movement to cure type 1 diabetes. Right now, we are truly experiencing a renaissance time in science. We have more shots on goal than we've ever had before. Cures are not a matter of if, only a matter of when. In addition to this amazing progress we're seeing in cell therapies and disease-modifying therapies, we're funding more than 400 active research projects in more than 21 different countries. We have 5 international affiliates amplifying our global efforts. And shortly, you'll hear more about each of them and the critical work they do to advance our mission. We're partnering with organizations that have deep expertise in global access and health equity. And we're working with them on numerous projects to address those challenges. We need you to continue to use your powerful voices to drive change, to drive funding, to drive insulin affordability, to drive access, and to help us make cures a reality for the entire type 1 diabetes community. Thank you so much for all that you do. We could not do this incredible work without each and every one of you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am fired up. That was so much good news. I love hearing all of the progress that we're making towards research and stem cell research and all those things. I'm so excited. Thank you, Dr. Kowalski, for that update and that message. And let's just keep moving right along. So JDRF, like he mentioned, is proud to work with our global partners in creating a world without T1D. Achieving our vision of world without T1D requires global collaboration. Approximately 1.45 million Americans live with type 1 diabetes, and countless more people are affected by the disease around the world. Our 5 affiliates, Australia, Canada, Israel, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom, are pivotal partners in funding the research that will reduce the burden of T1D on people's lives until there is a cure. Tonight, we will hear from Mike Wilson, CEO of JDRF Australia, Jessica Denise, President and CEO of JDRF Canada, Dan Farrow, Head of Community Engagement of JDRF UK, and Diederik Velkamp, CEO of JDRF Netherlands. Each will share insights into their respective countries and the pivotal work they're spearheading in support of the T1D community. Without further delay, let's kick it off with a message from Mike Wilson, CEO of JDRF Australia.
Hi, I'm Mike Wilson and I'm the CEO of JDRF Australia. We've been asked to give an introduction in our local language as well. So, g'day, I'm Mike from Australia and I had Vegemite for breakfast. Some facts about Australia. We have 25 million people and about 60 million sheep. We've got 10,500 beaches that I highly recommend you visiting. And we've got 21 of the world's 25 most venomous snakes. I don't recommend them quite as much. Now some facts about type 1 diabetes and JDRF in Australia. For over a decade, we've had islet transplantation available, funded through our health system. That's pretty impressive. For over a decade, we've had a clinical research network working on bringing the best and most promising therapies and devices through to that stage of human testing, funded by government and managed by JDRF Australia. And for over a decade, we've had an extremely exciting program called ENDIA that I want to tell you just a little bit more about. It's the Environmental Determinants of Islet Autoimmunity, one of those wonderful research acronyms, but it's about understanding the interaction between the environment and genetics and all these other imposts that lead to the triggering of type 1 diabetes. Now, this is a pretty impressive and globally unique project. For one, it has been going for nearly 10 years and has an enormous amount of accumulated information. Over 1,500 participants, over 150,000 samples that can be used to repeatedly explore new hypotheses about what could be triggering type 1 diabetes. But particularly special about this starts from gestation. It starts from the time a child is in the womb, a child with a first-degree relative with type 1 diabetes, and tracks them and their mother all the way through pregnancy and into the early years of life, because we're now starting to understand that the maternal gestational environment can also be an important factor in the later development of type 1 diabetes in children. So we may be a long way away from many of you, but we are very close to the absolute determination we share to rid the world of type 1 diabetes, and along the way to contribute as much as we can in Australia to research knowledge that will allow that to happen. And India is a great example of that. Thanks.
Hello everyone, and it's so wonderful to be with you today, and I hope you're enjoying today's event. I'm so delighted to be here representing JDRF UK, United Kingdom. My name is Dan and I'm the Head of Community Engagement, and I've been here 8.5 years now, which has absolutely flown by. Tiny bit about me, I was diagnosed with type 1 age 19, so that's 18.5 years ago now, and I'm super proud to work for JDRF. We really are that home of type 1, laser focused on our mission, and JDRF shines that light on the power of community, peer support, and the power of trusted information and support. And we get it. We know it's relentless and why community is so important. So many of our colleagues and volunteers have that personal connection to type 1. And of course, we're driven by that hope for the future through our incredible research and constant progress. But before I get into anything around research projects happening here, I've got some interesting facts for you about the UK. And we're delighted to have a member of our team working with us who's actually living in the UK from California. And I've taken advantage of that and asked her what some of her reflections were of living in the UK. And I'm sure many of these will resonate with you and maybe make more sense to you than what they do me. So a few of hers were Family Fortunes, which is a TV show here, basically a massive family feud, polled 100 people and asked, what's something that you microwave? The top answer was baked beans, and popcorn wasn't even on the board. It's somewhere where we say, I reckon, a lot more than you'd probably ever imagine. And foxes are urban pests that you often see taking the trash out at night. Flavoured coffee creamers don't exist, which I know massively upsets her. And a couple from me. In the UK, you're never more than 70 miles or 113 kilometres from the sea. And it's still considered an act of treason to put a postage stamp with the king's head upside down on an envelope. So I want to chat to you about a research project called ELSA, which we're super excited about. ELSA stands for Early Surveillance for Autoimmune Diabetes. And the wonderful Professor Parth Narendran and his team at the University of Birmingham are aiming to screen 20,000 children aged 3 to 13 across the UK for type 1. The study will provide crucial insights into practical and effective ways to screen large numbers of children, which we hope will lay the groundwork for a potential UK-wide screening programme. JDRF is co-funding this study with Diabetes UK, and screening children is of course vital so that we can find those at risk before they become unwell and try to help avoid that diagnosis in DKA. We also want to be able to educate families on how to spot the signs and symptoms of type 1. Screening will also allow researchers to recruit new people into studies testing new treatments. And Parth and his team will be collecting a small amount of blood from each child taking part, and that can be done at home, school, GP surgery, or at sites in their local community. And the researchers will be testing that blood for proteins that mistakenly attack the body's own cells, which are called autoantibodies, which are basically markers of risk for type 1. Most children, thankfully, won't have these antibodies, so for them, the study ends there. But we do expect roughly 1% of the tests to be positive. If a child does test positive, they may be at risk of developing type 1 in the future, and they'll be offered education sessions, monitoring, or follow-up programs based on the number of autoantibodies detected. And of course, with the recent approval of teplizumab in the US, a drug which can delay the onset of type 1 by up to 3 years, gives even more reason to screen children, as we can now intervene with the condition course. So I hope that was interesting. I wish you a great rest of the event, and thank you for having me.
Hi everyone from JDRF Canada. Bonjour à tous de la part de FRDG Canada. Je suis Jessica Denise, la présidente. For those who don't speak French, hi there, I'm Jessica Denise, the president and CEO for JDRF Canada. And I'm very happy to be bringing greetings from Canada, which is the second largest country in the world. So large, in fact, that it occupies 6 time zones. And I'm sure you can appreciate the fun in scheduling meetings with our team across the country and taking that into consideration. The other amazing thing about Canada is that we are fortunate to have one of the most preeminent pioneers in islet transplantation. Dr. James Shapiro is best known for leading the team that developed the Edmonton Protocol for islet transplantation in 1999. This protocol has facilitated over 500 transplants in Canada alone, with thousands performed around the world, allowing thousands of people with type 1 diabetes to become insulin independent. Despite his active surgical practice, Dr. Shapiro continues a very active research laboratory to identify ways to improve upon this protocol to make it more effective and accessible to more people with type 1 diabetes. He has been closely involved in ViaCyte's clinical trials, where Edmonton has been a key site. His current research studies, funded by JDRF, are looking at reducing the level of immunosuppression required after transplantation of donor islet cells. One study is examining the use of an infusion of regulatory T cells after islet transplantation. So regulatory T cells are powerful gatekeepers of the immune response and may prevent the graft rejection response as well as the autoimmune response. He's also testing whether transplanting islets at less invasive sites other than the liver can be successful. Lastly, Dr. Shapiro and his team are exploring the possibility of using a person's own blood cells to create islet-like cells. This process will draw blood from patients, reverse the cells back into stem cells, which have the potential to become any cell in the body, and then create islet-like insulin-producing cells, and finally transplant them back into patients without any need for immunosuppression. So Dr. Shapiro's research projects have the potential to change the future for type 1 diabetes and may mean the end of insulin independence for many. Thank you.
Goedendag, mijn naam is Diederik Veldkamp en ik ben directeur van JDRF Nederland. Hi, for those of you who don't speak Dutch, my name is Diederik Veldkamp and I'm the CEO of JDRF in the Netherlands. The Netherlands, a small country, is quite famous for some things. like Dutch painters, mills, cheese, and obviously we've got our tulips. Did you know we actually export billions of them every year? And what does it take to do so? Well, let me show you. It takes a whole lot of watering. And that brings me to the next best thing we're famous for, and that is water management. For years, many years, the Dutch have built expertise, researched ways, and executed projects to protect our land from the water. Well, and it might just be taken as a fact that put some bright Dutch minds together, have them work collectively, internationally, passionately, tirelessly, and they will come up with life-saving and life-improving solutions. That said, this is exactly what I encountered when I recently visited the great research team of Amsterdam UMC, where they are running several JDRF-funded innovative projects. And these projects primarily focus on mental well-being of people living with T1D. One of those projects I would especially like to highlight, for instance, is a study that aims to determine whether an app called My Diamate, really using the app, which is self-guided and web-based, really improves the mental health when added to the usual care for people with type 1 diabetes. A second very innovative and special project is the so-called diabetes body project, which actually is a trial of a virtually delivered eating disorder prevention program for young people, young females with type 1 diabetes. Knowing mental health issues disproportionately affect people with T1D, I find it very encouraging to see JDRF funding finding its way to these kind of projects. Because at JDRF, globally, in Europe, in the Netherlands, we work hard to advance research and technology to actually improve lives of people living with T1D by making everyday life healthier, easier, and more productive. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Well, back to me in Los Angeles, California. That was so awesome. And I know for me, just personally, when you're going through type 1 diabetes, you can feel so alone or that you're by yourself. But knowing that there are people all around the world that have this disease, and there's people that are in the research labs making sure that there is a cure and that there's different type of technologies to help you with it is so comforting. We did want to say that while JDRF Israel team was not able to join us with the message this evening, we are happy to share that the team is safe and providing community support to people with T1D in Israel. JDRF International supports those efforts and is also working with our global partners to determine the best way to support the entire T1D community in the impacted regions. When we have tangible ways to help people living with T1D in the region, we will share them with our community. We want to give a huge shout out to our wonderful JDRF affiliates. Thank you for your messages. Each of those affiliates is working hard to lessen the burden of T1D on people's lives until there is a cure. Shout out to all of you, and thank you for those messages. Next up is JDRF Game to Give, a global program which is spreading awareness, promoting representation, and fundraising through the power of video games. Through in-game integration, live stream fundraisers, game bundles, and esports tournaments, The programs have raised more than $3 million since its inception a few years ago. Hear what Game to Give has planned for this National Diabetes Awareness Month and be ready to stream, watch, play, and donate. Check it out.
We are in the midst of our National Diabetes Awareness Month fundraising campaign.
We just raised $1,000 in 2 hours for JDRF.
It goes to an awesome cause, goes to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Let's see if we can get through a day, okay? Go wild, chat. Good luck, have fun. Cammy, no! Stop it! I just want breakfast, that's all she... Who?
Oh! No way!
If you don't have diabetes or know somebody who does have diabetes, it's hard to get a sense of just how pervasive it is in your life. You know, in some respects, it's like a video game, right? But with bigger stakes.
Here's my insulin. It's in a pink silicone protective case. And then I'm injecting it into the pod.
A little bit high, but it's coming down.
These bits here, these are all after I've run out of active insulin. All of it. It's after all of that. It's just.
My sensor is only 6 units off my blood sugar. My blood sugar is 257, and my pump says 263.
The way gamers are and the way the gamer community is they really support each other, you know, and ever since I've been in the business, I've seen this. And I knew that if people knew that you were struggling, they would want to help.
That is so cute. I love that the bear had a insulin pump on. Wow, that is so cool and so fun. What a fun way to celebrate National Diabetes Awareness Month. Make sure to head over to JDRF's Twitch channel after this to join in on the fun. A special thanks to our guests and affiliates for sharing their research and stories with us tonight. I had a blast. I know I took down some notes. I learned so much. I always do, and I have on all of these virtual sessions. So thank you to all of you. I'd also like to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Abbott, Dexcom, Ford, Insulet, Lilly, Mankind, Marshalls, Medtronic, Sanofi, Splenda, Tandem, Vertex, Xeris, all of you. Thank you. You can learn more about the national partners who help make the Type 1 Nation Virtual Summit possible and the latest in technology and T1D management at jdrf.org/TON Summit. And thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. I know I had fun. I hope you had fun with me. If you haven't already done so, please visit jdrf.org/TON Summit and view the previous recorded sessions because we had a blast all year long. We look forward to seeing you again in 2024. Stay tuned for more information on that soon. Thank you guys for hanging out with me, and good night. I'll see you again soon.